You've found your way to the Winning Tactics podcast with host Adam Sinkus. Adam discusses winning tactics with small business owners and entrepreneurs, uncovering processes and introducing the tools and solutions for enhancing the bottom line. Thanks again for finding your way to the Winning Tactics podcast, and now your host, Adam Sinkus.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. We are back for yet another wonderful episode of the Winning Tactics podcast. I am super excited today because we are talking about accountability. It is something that's super important to me because, gosh darn it, that's the only way we get anything done in the world. Excited to bring on my guest today, Don Markland with Accountability Now. Don, welcome to the show. So glad to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, Adam, thank you first for letting me come on the show and for providing a voice for small business owners and entrepreneurs to learn really simple strategies that are not theoretical. I think that's a really important vehicle that you provide. So thank you for that. A little bit about me. My name is Don Markland. I'm the owner and founder of Accountability Now. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur, and I've been an executive for the last 20 years. And in addition to my coaching business, where I specialize with small businesses between napkin to 10 million. I also run sales and marketing for 411 Locals, which is one of the fastest growing digital marketing agencies in the country, based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And I love working with small businesses. We only work with small businesses. That's all I do.
Absolutely love that. It is such an important thing. Small businesses, I think a lot of times get lost in the shuffle, right? And it's not by their own doing. It's by the fact that they've got 12,000 things on them because they don't have a person for everything. And then, they're oftentimes working in a space of limited revenue, limited resources to be able to take advantage of some of this stuff. So, today we're talking about accountability, though, which I love. You've got a book out called The 4 C's of Accountability, and that's really where we're going today. But one thing that I think is really important is setting some ground rules with accountability, because it's not just I'm accountable, right? It's not just saying it. There is some things that we need to, I think, intrinsically understand before we dive into this. So you have a couple of ground rules that you lay out for accountability. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah. So, and accountability, people kind of misunderstand it. They think holistically, I need to hold somebody accountable. I need to hold you accountable. And they've got this mindset of, hey, I only hold you accountable when you screw up. And you couldn't be more wrong. Accountability is being accountable for all of the decisions in your life, which means everything you did well, right? Adam, you and I've talked about you starting this podcast and the grind and the work that it took to do that. Well, dadgummit, you should be held accountable for that. Somebody should hold you accountable for doing that hard work, right? Good job. And we misunderstand that. We think, hey, you screwed up, I better hold you accountable. Well, you nailed it. I should hold you accountable. And so there are 2 rules, and then we'll talk about the 4 C's later. But the 2 rules, if you're going to really understand accountability, the first rule is accountability always starts with me. I don't go into a room when something happened and start pointing at other people. Hey, this is your fault. This is Adam's fault. This is IT's fault. This is the market's fault. No, you start with yourself and say, what did I do to contribute to the problem? No matter what it is. There's a hurricane in Fort Myers, Florida, okay, and your power goes out. What did you do to not get your podcast up? Did you not have a generator? Did you not have this? You always look at yourself first. That's the first rule. And then the second rule is that anybody can hold you accountable. There are no egos in accountability. And this is important. And I use a metaphor to teach this. I want you to imagine baseball. Baseball's big here in Florida, right? Tampa, there's always spring training. And so if you take the sport of baseball, if I throw a pitch and you swing and you miss, that's a strike. And it doesn't matter if the umpire calls it a strike, or the opposing player calls it a strike, or a fan in the stands calls it a strike. It doesn't matter. It is still a strike every single time. And so many times we waste all of this emotional energy arguing with people saying, hey, it's not your job to tell me where I screwed up. You're a hypocrite. You messed up too. Why are we doing that? When it was still a strike, right? We still messed up. Who cares if it's a hypocrite? Of course they are. We're all hypocrites. You still messed up. Why don't you have the guts and tell them, thank you for calling me out. Let me correct my swing and grip it and rip it again. Those are the first two rules.
Yeah. I love that. What you talk about with, owning it, right. And just like, dropping that defensiveness and the ego around it. I think that's, for me, at least in my experiences, that's probably been the hardest thing in those situations, is to drop that ego, especially when you're in a position of leadership, whether it be owning the company, whether it be managing a team, that ego, sometimes I think often leaders rest their laurels on that ego a little bit, and being the all-knowing, important, I can take care of anything body. And so it's interesting when you say we have to let go of that, because I think it sets a totally different tone in the space.
You couldn't be more right. Like that whole idea of there's no egos, it's particularly hard with leaders, right? CEOs. It's particularly hard in relationships, right? Because accountability is a lifestyle. If your spouse tells you where you messed up, if your kids tell you where you messed up, it's important for you to be like, God, you know what? You're right. Rather than, I'm not going to listen to you because I think you're lesser than me, or because I think you don't know, or I think I'm smarter than you or more educated than you. And that's why it's so important. That's why those are the two overarching rules before you start applying the actual techniques of how to do it. Those rules cover everything, every person, every creed. Those embody everything.
Absolutely. I love just like the simplicity of it. Always starts with you, right? I've often gone into situations, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit with success, but even in situations of success, and go, what did I do to contribute to the success? And also asking the same question, what could I have done to contribute to more success in that situation?
Yeah. And we'll talk about that as well with the other C, but it's important. That's, you have to start with yourself, right? You accountability, and it's like we led with the whole discussion with, so many times we just want to focus on how terrible we are when it comes to accountability. And it has somewhere, it's got this negative connotation, right? You hear, oh man, I'm going to hold you accountable. Right? And I hear managers do it with some of my clients, like, hey, we got to hold these people accountable. And I just jump right on, stop that. You don't need to hold them accountable. You need to coach them, right? Because you should be holding them accountable all day, every day, with everything you do, right? That you're only applying accountability with a negative connotation, and that makes people hate it. It turns it into a bitter medicine. It shouldn't be. It should always be positive.
It's interesting. I've never really thought about it that way, but the negative connotation with the word accountability, there's so many, buzzwords in leadership training. And I think the way accountability is often used in leadership training, it is wholeheartedly treated as kind of one of those buzzwordy, we say it, but we don't really understand or believe it type things.
If you hear the way people use it, it would almost have a definition of, I'm going to call you on the carpet, right? That's the way they mean it. And that is not what accountability is. That's just calling them on the carpet, right? Accountability is helping them be alerted to their decisions. And the way I define accountability is the glue that ties commitment to results. Okay. And so, and those results can be anything, positive or negative, but we're going to get you to do what you say you're going to do. And we're going to tie that to your results, whatever they are. And we're going to make sure you're committed to those, up or down.
Yeah. No, absolutely love it. Let's pause for just a moment. I want to thank my affiliate partner, Cowork Hub Virtual. They are giving consultants, coaches, freelancers, and solopreneurs a sense of place in a remote work world. Super, super cool virtual co-working space. It's taking co-working to the next level. You don't have to be in a physical location, but you get all the advantages of being in a co-working space with other consultants, other coaches. Super, super awesome offering. Check them out, coworkhubvirtual.com, and let them know you saw them on the Winning Tactics, and you can get your own free branded background for your personal customized office. So super, super cool offering there. And I thank you for letting me take a moment to do that. Let's dive into those 4 C's a little bit, because that's really what we're here to talk about. So let's start with, what are the 4 C's, and we can dive deeper into each one as we go.
Yeah. So the 4 C's, and I'll tell you, I came up with them because years ago, I was in my mid 20s. I was, I don't know, 65 pounds heavier than I am now. My favorite restaurant was this fine establishment called Taco Bell. I don't know if you've heard of that delicious place. And I was running sales and operations for a call center company in northern Utah. And I was miserable. Even though I was successful as this VP, I didn't really have success like to what I wanted. And one day I was in this training room, and I was frustrated because I never saw my wife and kids. I was traveling all the time. And as I was there, I thought, there's got to be a better way. I needed clarity in my life. And clarity came in the form of accountability. And like I said, I kind of wrote down in this little notebook that clarity is the commitment that ties results, right? It's the glue that ties commitment to results. And that's where I came up with these 4 C's. And the first C is really simple. It is critique success. Or in other words, do it better every single time. All right. So if you're going to, rather than break your wrist, pat yourself on your back because, you're so proud of the work you did, stop. When you do something well, like the Winning Tactics or whatever it is, and you're doing it really well, stop. Surround yourself with people that tell you the truth and say, okay, how can you do it better? What can I do better? How can I really attack this? Adam, Don, what do we have to do to be better? And you critique your success. And that stops you from resting on your laurels. One of my oldest mentors taught me, Don, when you get to the top of the mountain, there's only one place to go. It's back down. So always raise the mountaintop. Always raise the mountaintop. And that's what critique success is about.
I love that. It's interesting. We often get stuck in the cheers of success, great job, the attaboys, and then we just leave success at that. And I've often said, and I've always led in my teams, that we need to continue that conversation beyond just good job and talk about what made it successful, because we can apply that to everything else that we're doing and find other creative ways to make other projects that are going on and everything else that we're doing just as successful, and be happy about it instead of sitting there in the debrief meeting after a project gone awry, which happens. It happens to the best of us, going, all right, we really screwed this one up, guys. How are we going to fix this?
That's right. Yeah. When you really do it around your successes, it'll lead to more successes, future successes, and bigger successes. When you stop and go, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and how can we do it even better? And then when you do that first, while the emotion's still strong, it's amazing how much creativity you can get out of it.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love that. And then we dive into the second one, which is, we kind of already alliterated to it a little bit.
Yes, we correct failure. Okay. The second C is we correct failure. So many times, and this is, if small business owners and entrepreneurs and even startup founders don't struggle with this, it's that fear of failure. This is probably one of the largest contributors to small businesses failing. And you correct failure. So I don't want, and I talk to my clients and small business owners all over the world about this, don't be afraid to fail, because you're going to fail so much more than you will succeed. I'm sure there were many Winning Tactics podcasts that were not very good. Not like this one. This is probably the best one you've had, but there are many that have failed, and you can't be afraid of that. You just have to correct it. analyze the decisions you made. What data did you use? What assumptions did you make? And then correct it. Make the correction and move forward. That's the key, not punishing it. Who cares, right? Just correct it and roll.
Yeah, it's interesting. I look back and we were talking, pre-show, and you're like, you've really got this down to a science, and that's one of those things where I screwed up and missed stuff in shows that I wanted to talk about and didn't have my notes down and things like that. And it's like, now we're on episode 53. 52, 53, somewhere around there. And I've made those corrections along the way to, push a smoother process for myself, for my guests, and that's really what it's about is, I know where I've messed up in the past, and I know what steps I've taken that didn't work, and how I've applied those now to make an even smoother experience going forward.
Absolutely. It's great. And you're a perfect example of correct failure over and over and over and over and over. And you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid to make the mistake and correct it.
So we go from correcting failure to where?
So this is where you can actually cheer a little bit. This is celebrate growth. And the hardest thing you're going to do in this life is grow. Right. And I relate it to fitness. Okay. You've been to a gym. I've been to a gym every once in a while. I walk by them and I see them, but I know what a gym is. And I've gone and I've lifted weights before. And the most important lift when you're at the gym is the last lift, right? Not lift 10 or 11. It's the last one, the one that rips your muscles so that lactic acid goes in and actually makes you stronger. That's the most important one. And that's what growth is. Growth is hard. It has to hurt, right? It's that whole concept of iron sharpens iron. There has to be pain. There has to be sacrifice in order to get sharper. And that's what celebrate growth is all about. When you make those hard choices to grow, when you make those sacrifices to get better, that's when you celebrate, when you do those hard things. And people ask me all the time, they say, Don, why am I not celebrating my successes? Shouldn't I celebrate that just as much? And this is where I come back. I say, look, I believe every one of us are sent here to this earth to be successful. And if that's what you're expected to be, why in the world would we celebrate you meeting expectations? That breeds entitlement. We celebrate the hard choices. We celebrate when you do above what's expected, choosing the hard things. That's why we celebrate growth and not celebrate successes.
I absolutely love that perspective on it. Growth is when we're winning, and you're exactly right. It's proverbial getting away from the mindset of the participation trophy, which is a big grinding moment in my life, but but it's interesting because I think people stop at success too often. I mentioned that earlier. We stop at success and we don't ask the questions. We stop at success and just move on to the next thing, and we don't create the opportunities to really grow and become broader and better and more effective at what we're doing in those moments. And so, it's all about momentum and moving the needle forward.
That's right. That's right. And making those hard choices. And I will tell people, celebrate to the point of awkwardness. I mean, go crazy, get on tables, go to eat, have fun. When you do hard things, when you make hard sales calls, when you do something that scares you, when you do things, go crazy to celebrate it, because it creates momentum in your life and it makes you love doing hard things.
Fantastic. And then we get into what I think is probably my favorite one of the four, honestly. Yeah. And I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag quite yet, but one thing that I absolutely hate is when people say it's good enough.
Yeah.
And I hear this all the time. I hear it from leaders. I hear it from, the individual contributors. I hear it all through businesses. It's good enough to get the job done. It's good enough to put in front of the client. It's good enough to whatever. Right. And all I sit there and cringe and I go, why isn't it your best? If it's not your best, then why are you even bothering putting it out there? So what is number 4? Let's let the cat out of the bag here.
The 4th C of accountability is crush mediocrity. And what mediocrity is sadly, we're all infected with it. Every one of us. Adam, you've got it. I've got a lot of it. Okay. My wife reminds me of that all the time, right? Like everybody's got a ton of mediocrity, but what we do with mediocrity is very important, because in Florida, you and I both are in Florida, and you're going to know, like I do, we have bugs. Like, and I don't care what kind of bug company we've got, we're still going to have crazy big bugs. I mean, just huge ones. And when we have these bugs and we see them, we have what's called the lonely flip-flop. We ended up with one flip-flop somewhere. And when I see one of these bugs, I take this flip-flop and I have to crush it with everything that I've got. And when I don't, if I just tap one of these little bugs, I have this weird mindset thinking this bug is going to go tell all of his little buggy friends, hey, Don's a wimp. Come over and hang at the Markland house. Right? And they're just going to infect the whole house. That's what mediocrity does. If you don't crush it with everything you have, I mean, everything, and just smash it out, it infects your whole life. It starts to seep every part of your life. And all of a sudden you wake up and realize, like you said, you start to settle for things that are good enough. You cut corners in numerous spots and you realize I'm not my best in every aspect, and it's terrible.
Yeah. It's really interesting, right? Like I think we get stuck in this mediocrity battle because we get busy and we put too much on our plates. We put, everything on our plate, especially as a business owner, right? There's 12,000 things going on constantly. And, it's really easy to fall into this trap. And I truly believe that, one bad apple spoils the bunch. It's, one acceptance of this is good enough just sends you into that spiral.
That's right. Yeah, it does. It's that crush mediocrity mentality. When you allow just the littlest amount of it in, it just infects the rest of your life.
So let's take this, because we've definitely outlined some really, really cool and critical pieces in accountability. How do we help some business owners, put the rubber down to the road and really identifying this and correcting it in their businesses? What are some tips you have?
So what I tell small business owners all the time, okay, is, and accountability is a funny word because, like we've talked about, it's buzzy, right? And it's funny. I've read numerous studies where small business owners absolutely believe everybody on their team needs it a lot more than they need it. And you couldn't be more incorrect. Everybody needs better accountability for the good and the bad things in their life. And the first thing I teach is you need to surround yourself with what's called a key accountability partner, or KAP. When I was starting my entrepreneurial journey and I had ownership in my very first business with another guy in Salt Lake City, Utah, I was chief operating officer and an owner, and we had a negative $10,000 run rate. Now, that is not the tip for your listeners. Okay. That is not a business model you should follow. Okay. So nobody listening should write that down. Hey, okay, Don said get negative $10,000. It's a terrible idea. And we were really struggling. And I started to try to build this business. The other owner was a serial entrepreneur. He had already gone on to start a new business. So I was all alone. We were a digital marketing agency and a lead gen company. And as I was trying to build this business, it was getting worse by the day. Every hour we were open, it felt like we were losing money. And one day, after about, 120 days or so, I called my wife on my way home from work. And I called her and I was whining and complaining, right? Just like, this sucks. This job sucks. This business sucks. We're losing money. We're losing our money. I couldn't have done anything worse. And my wife said to me, and this is literally almost word for word what she said. She said, "Are you done whining?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Good. I'm sick of it. Lucky for you, I didn't marry a loser. From now on, only call me when you're going to talk about the solutions that you're going to put in place. Otherwise, you are the problem. From now on, only call me when you're going to talk about the 4 C's." And she hung up the phone. Click. And I'll be honest, I did not call her every day because sometimes I didn't have good things to say. But most times I called her and I focused on the solutions. I focused on what I knew worked. And that company was negative $10,000. About a year and a half later, we crossed 1.5 million. And it was amazing. And I realized the power of having a key accountability partner, of having a coach in my life, somebody outside that could help me look inside differently and be better and be a better leader, entrepreneur, and executive. It's the most powerful thing. And it wasn't until later that I hired my own coach that helped me do that professionally. And that's helped me in every aspect of my success.
I love, so coaching, I think, is something that small business owners often overlook, partially because I think it can be expensive, right? It definitely can be expensive for finding a coach and paying for that every month. That is sometimes upwards of $300, $400, $500 or more per hour. But the reality is those are the people that are going to shut you down when you're doing the wrong things and remind you that you know how to do the right things. And in that outside perspective is just so powerful, because we get too close in our business and we start getting into that mediocrity space. We start getting into that negative headspace. And I talked a lot about mindset last week on the show, but it's a vicious cycle that sometimes you just need that outside perspective to push forward.
That's right. There was a study done by UPS where they were looking at all the businesses they partnered with, and they found out that 80% of small businesses that worked with and invested in some sort of a business coach outperformed those that didn't. 80% of them. Okay. And then the SBA, Small Business Administration, after doing a similar study, came out with a statement that's saying, when you hire the right business coach, that is, quote, a game changer for small businesses. Now, to your point, yes, it can be expensive, but I would flip it, and I get it. I'm a business coach, so I'm extremely biased. But my perspective would be not hiring a business coach is expensive, right? Not hiring somebody that has experience in your business, has experience in your industry, and has experience actually running a business, right? That is what's expensive. Now, I'm going to say something here. So many business coaches have never ran a business, have never answered payroll, right? Have never actually been an entrepreneur. They're just theoretical certified. Okay. Those are not business coaches. And I would not hire them. I would hire people that have ran a business. I would hire people that have answered payroll. I would hire people that have lost money, that have sold a business. I would hire people that have done those things. Because that is the difference maker. Somebody that has actually, had to answer payroll and that have had to make collection calls like I've had, right? That is what makes a real business coach, and that can give you the perspective you need.
Yeah, fantastic. So we're getting towards the end of the show. I always like to wrap up my show with some final thoughts, something that folks can take away from the show and really just, apply today. So I leave the floor to you. Go ahead and hit us with your final thoughts.
My final thought for everybody is, whether you use a business coach or somebody in your life, accountability can't be just on your own willpower alone. You've lived however long in your life. Don't rely on yourself to hold yourself accountable. Find somebody in your life that can hold you accountable, that can tell you the truth, that can be candid, so that you can become better every single day. All of you can do this right now. Find a friend, a cousin, somebody, or an actual business coach. And I promise in 6 months, you won't recognize who you are.
Absolutely fantastic advice. I think there's so many people in our lives, our significant others, our parents, brothers, sisters, cousins, right? They can all be that person for you. So great advice, great piece of advice to take away. Strongly encourage you to take advantage of that. If you aren't already taking advantage of a coach or an accountability partner in your business currently. So with that, where can people find you?
Thank you. You can go to my site, accountabilitynow.net. And to your point, if coaching is too expensive, right? And I know I'm a business coach and I'm literally I just was named by Newbie the #1 business coach in the state of Florida. So if you're in the state of Florida and you want to work with me, you can find me there. But if business coaching is too expensive, I have a brand new online course just around accountability, starting a business, growing a business. We have updated content every week, and I've discounted it to $7 a month just for the Winning Tactics listeners if you go on there. So anybody goes on there over the next, we're going to do it for the next month, they can get it for $7 a month. And anybody can do that. You can start learning accountability and helping yourself get better, and daily deliberate practice to learn what we talk about.
Absolutely fantastic. And I appreciate that for our listeners. I know there's going to be so much value in that for them. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate you taking your time today with us, Don. You definitely gave us some really, really good nuggets of information. I love the 4 C's of accountability. He's got a book out. Where can we find your book if we want to read more? You can find the book on Amazon. It's available on Amazon and also Barnes & Noble. So you can go there, look up 4 C's of Accountability, Don Markland. I also have a children's book on there that my wife was very candid to say it wasn't very good. So you can choose either one and pick it. Fantastic. So go check out his book. If you want to learn more about the 4 C's of Accountability, check out his website. Again, thank you so much for your time. I thank everybody for stopping by. And as always, we will be live next Tuesday. And you can also find us on YouTube and all the major podcast networks with our replay every Thursday. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button and drop a comment as well. Thanks so much and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Well, that wraps up yet another episode of the Winning Tactics Podcast. You can find Adam on both the LinkedIn and Facebook platforms. And to support the show and ensure the success of the podcast, would you kindly consider visiting Patreon.com/Adam Sinkus? We greatly appreciate it. And until next time, from the Winning Tactics Podcast, remember, culture is how your team behaves when no one is looking. Take good care, and thanks for listening.